was always the Jags.
It's always the Jags. It's always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
Welcome into Always the Jags, your number one podcast for everything Jacksonville, everything Jaguars, everything Duval. My guys, the Jaguars are going to give me an anxiety attack. I'm going to have heart problems. I was having heart palpitations after that game against the Raiders. Oh my gosh. And there's so many different ways to look at this, right? There's so many different ways to break it down. But we'll just start with that, with the Raiders game. We're also going to break down, I know might be a little soon, but we haven't heard anything on the trade news, so we'll talk about who we think we need, and I guess we'll find out if James Gladstone ends up bringing those guys in. But first, let's break down this Raiders game because, man, the Jaguars really were playing with fire. I won't even say that they were playing with fire because the Raiders played a lot better. I think the Raiders that we saw in the past weeks, like that blowout to the Colts, not scoring on the Chiefs, made everyone in Jacksonville not necessarily think it was going to be an easy win, but a simple win. On paper, we're the better team, right? We beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't let the Raiders score, right? But injuries make such a difference. And Geno Smith is just a different quarterback with Brock Bowers. Like, you watch this game with Geno Smith and Brock Bowers, and you don't really have that many questions about him. But before going into the season, like, you're feeling like Geno is the guy, right? You're feeling like Geno is playing really, really well. He had like 117 passer rating, 4 touchdowns, and that's because Brock Bowers is just that much of a dude, and he's been hurt all year. This is the first game he's played where I think he's been like 100% healthy, because even in the season opener, I think he was a little bit hurt or dealing with something. So, and he let us know, man, he took us to task. And I can be a little bit happy because I have him in like 4 of my leagues. So the fact that he scored 3 touchdowns and got me a win in like 3 of my leagues, and the Jaguars still won, it's literally the definition of a win-win, right? But here we are. Now we're looking at, it was 30-29 was the final score for that game. And the Jaguars were able to, I think it's just such a testament to overcoming adversity. Because at one point in the game, again, for everyone that's like, wow, the Jaguars barely beat the Raiders, these same Raiders that lost 40-9 to the Colts and didn't get scored on by the Chiefs. Raiders are in a tailspin. I agree, the Raiders are not a good team. But let's look at the Jaguars for a second. At one point in the game, we had lost Brian Thomas Jr. Travis Hunter was already out. Brenton Strange was already out. We lost Hunter Long. We lost Diami Brown. Those are our top 5 pass catchers. Our top 5. We lost our number 1 receiver, our rookie wide receiver highly drafted, our starting tight end, our starting tight end's backup, and then our 3rd receiver. Those were all starters. Everyone Trevor was playing with, Austin Trammell, had just come up from the practice squad. Tim Patrick was out. Even he would have been a nice guy to have, but he wasn't in this game. He was inactive. We had to call up Austin Trammell and who's the other guy? And Parker Washington obviously played a huge role in us to get this win. I think he had like 8 catches for 90 yards. I mean, he was the reason why we were able to pull it off. So many third downs, Trevor Lawrence was able to put the ball to him. So, and then you look at our defense, our starting linebacker, and I think partly why Brock Bowers went crazy is because Devin Lloyd wasn't there. I said Devin Lloyd's our best coverage linebacker. I feel good with him covering Brock Bowers. Ventrell Miller and Foye Oluokun were not up to the task of covering Brock Bowers. They could stop the run, but those guys cannot do anything in coverage, which again establishes to me, James Gladstone, you cannot let Devin Lloyd walk out the building this offseason. If this game is any indication in the way we got feasted on by Brock Bowers, you cannot let Devin Lloyd walk out of the building this year. When he comes back healthy, you need to sign him. Or at least tag him. But then we have another problem because throughout the game, our best player on offense was Travis Etienne. He was pushing so many, and the best example I have is when Trevor dumped it off, because one thing our offense wasn't able to do was overcome bad starts. So like if you have a first down and then you get sacked for 5 yards, or if you have a stupid asinine penalty, which we had way too much of again, whenever that happens, it's hard for us to overcome it, right? Like Travis Hunter got us back a second and 20 one time, but we didn't have him, right? So on first down, Trevor dumps it off to Travis Etienne, 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And there's already a Raider in his face. If that Raider makes the tackle, now it's second and 14. And we're back behind the egg ball again. The Raiders are teeing off in the pass rush, and it could change the complexion of the game. Travis Etienne caught the ball, and immediately, like, he turns his head. The Raider's right there. And he makes one move and makes the guy miss. He just stops himself from running, and the guy completely misses him, and then he goes and picks up 8 yards, making it second and 4, second and 5, or something like that. I don't know how we can get rid of him right now. Like, maybe Bashal Tutin can get to that point and do those moves like that, but that was Travis Etienne who did it. You know what I mean? It's like the guy who's doing it and who's putting in, and he was like, we usually think of him as like a shifty scat back, but he added so much power to his game this offseason. He was bouncing off guys, putting his head down, lowering, and running through guys. Like, if it wasn't for the record-breaking night that Cam Little had, Travis Etienne would be my player of the game. He's right behind Cam Little. And this offense flows when he flows. I still think Bretton Strange is the bread and butter of this offense because his blocking ability and his catching ability confuses defenses, right? Travis Etienne doesn't confuse them as much in that way. Like, if you see Bretton Strange going out to block, you don't know if he's going to block or pass. There's so many things you can do with a guy like that. But Travis Etienne, our offense is better when Travis Etienne is better. When he's moving, when he's rolling, that's how things get going. And like, I was watching the Monday Night Football game, the Sunday Night Football game. I want the Jaguars to look at the Seahawks and be them, right? Like, the Seahawks might have a better offensive line. It's weird because our offensive line, it like comes and goes in waves. Like, sometimes they'll play. Robert Haynes has been consistent all year. Anton Harrison, when he's been healthy, he's been consistent pretty much all year and playing really well. Patrick McCarry is up and down days. He had a better game yesterday, but he had a rough 3-game stretch. Walker Little came into the season strong, feeling good about him. Gave up 3 sacks in the Seattle game. Hasn't really recovered since. Played a little bit better this game, but not by much. And then Ezra Cleveland wasn't playing well before he went out. So it's hard to get a beat on like what is our offensive line. But either way, with the Seahawks, the way they run the ball with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, it forces defenses into man coverage because the way that their power running scheme, it just blows up zone coverage. And the guys will start getting 6-7 yards per carry. And you can just march down the field, rotating your 2 backs, and go down the field and score with the running game. But when they go into man coverage, that allows Sam Darnold to beat him with his arm. So the run was effectively setting up the pass. And like, obviously that's what every team wants to do, right? But it's easier said than done. But again, we need teams to feel so threatened by the run that they have to do man coverage. Because in man coverage, Sam Darnold threw like 4 touchdowns against man coverage because Washington's secondary couldn't hold up against Seattle's receivers. And that's also because in zone coverage, they weren't getting their running backs to the ground. So that's the kind of scheme I look at, and I'm like, man, now, again, Sam Darnold is throwing some crazy accurate passes. Is Trevor Lawrence going to be able to do the same thing? That's what I want to see, right? I want to see us use that to try to make and see if our offense can really go do that. But again, back to our defense. Again, we had lost Devin Lloyd before the game. He had been out for the last few. I think he's been out since either the Seattle game or the Rams game, and he didn't go with us to London, so he's been out since the Rams game, and that kind of explains the point explosion, 35-7. Because Lloyd also, he brings a lot of pressure from his blitzes. He does a lot more than just that coverage and that ball hawking ability that we've suddenly seen now this year. So Devin Lloyd being out hurts our defense. And I feel bad, but like, Andrew Wingard is kind of getting exposed now because he's lost Devin Lloyd. He's lost Eric Murray. And teams realize that, when you can kind of lean on the other guys to be successful. But without them, sometimes they can kind of expose you. And Andrew Wingard is kind of being exposed. Like, I'm not going to say he's not a starter, right? But like, he's a guy that can come in and give you some good reps and keep your defense afloat when a guy goes down. But he's not the guy to be left standing when everyone else went down. You know what I mean? And that's why, again, Caleb Bransaw is supposed to be that ball hawk, but we'll never see him this season. And again, it has me wonder, Xavier Watts was right there. Was that really the right choice? But here we are, like I said, Andrew Wingard kind of got exposed. Our cornerbacks, Greg Newsom played pretty well, gave up that touchdown to Brock Bowers, but that was mainly just a phenomenal catch because that was solid coverage. Monteric Brown had a great pick, but then he also got beaten man coverage. Jarrian Jones got called for some penalties, and Jarrian Jones is a guy that I thought would really step up. So, like, we are banged up in the worst way possible, right? Missing our best linebacker, missing our starting safety, missing our best cornerback, and Jordan Lewis went down too. Jordan Lewis went down in this game. That's why Jarrian Jones had to come in. So missing two starting cornerbacks, missing a safety, missing our starting linebacker, missing our starting tight end, missing his backup. At one point, we were missing our starting receiver. At one point, we were missing all three starting receivers, and we still were able to gut out a win. So I think that's a huge testament to having the guys prepared and having the Jaguars believe that they are a good team. And I can't wait to see us back at full strength again. I don't think any of these guys that are hurt are out for the year, but we do have a tough stretch of games to get through without them because we don't know how it's going to go. Oh, and not to mention Trayvon Walker is still coming off of his injury, right? So our edge has also been hurt, which allows guys, because Trayvon Walker can't play as well, they're just teeing off on Josh Allen. So, but the difference is, when we had an injury-riddled season in 2023, we cratered. Those injuries cratered our season. And in 2024, it wasn't injury-riddled until we just couldn't get the stink of losing off until Trevor went down. And then it was just, over for the season. This Jags team, despite all the injuries, we are finding ways to win instead of finding ways to lose. And that was the difference between us in 23 versus 24. In 24, we were finding ways to lose. At the end of 23, we were finding ways to lose. But in 24, that was the hallmark of our season. How many one-score games did we lose? Now, this season, the Jaguars haven't really blown out anybody. We did dominate the Panthers, right? I'll say that. They didn't have a chance to win, really, within that game. But we've won we've lost 2 one-score games. We've lost 2 one-score games. All the other ones we've been able to come out with a win. So again, we are finding ways to win instead of finding ways to lose. And it's just that simple. Let's talk about trade moves because the deadline is today at 4:00. If this episode will be up by then, hopefully it will. And obviously the Jaguars there are some guys that I definitely would want, that I definitely want to see us pick up. But it's going to be kind of tough for us to get those guys, or for us to, what's the right way to put it? We have so many needs. We have so many. There's about 5 players that the Jaguars could try to trade and bring in because we're just so injured, right? But my number one thought process is, I was talking to my friend, I think David Njoku is the top target. I think you can get him for a 4th or a 5th. I'm fine with paying either, but probably no more than a 4th because I don't think he'll be in our long-term plans. And because he's already got that extension. But we've got enough cap space because we've had some cap space freed up. And I think bringing in David Njoku would help weather the storm without Brenton Strange for a little bit longer. Because I think he's eligible to come back after this next Texans game. And this Texans game is going to be very important because C.J. Stroud may be out with a concussion. And now Davis Mills knows how to beat us, but if we can get some reinforcements to try to stave that off, that would be even better. So if we can bring in a guy like that, a guy like David Njoku, he can help out our tight end room, and he can help out mitigate the loss of Travis Hunter too, because we can run a lot of 2 tight end sets when Brenton Strange comes back. The difference is if we bring in a wide receiver like Jacoby Myers, he couldn't really help out our tight end room because at one point we were down to 1 tight end. So if Brenton Strange gets hurt again or something like that, we had no one else to turn to, no one else to step up. But if we go get David Njoku, now to kind of mitigate the loss of Travis Hunter, we can run more 2 tight end sets where we have Brian Thomas Jr., Diami Brown, Brenton Strange, and David Njoku out there to try to get our best players up on the field. David Njoku is more of a pass catcher than he is a blocker, right? So he won't be that confusing. But again, he can kind of operate in the middle. and he still can block, right? He still can come in for Brenton Strange because Hunter Long got hurt too. And I don't think the Jaguars are ready to rely on Johnny Munt. So I think David Njoku is definitely a guy to bring in. Secondly, the player I want the most, I think Calais Campbell. Bring Calais Campbell back home. I said this earlier, but it's tougher because the Cardinals ended up winning last night. And so if the Cardinals had lost, I feel like they would be in a point of like, yeah, Jonathan Gannon probably won't be here. It's just time to clean house and let's restart this thing. Because teams that can change the perception of a team. Like even the Miami Dolphins, they beat the Falcons, but then they lost to the Ravens. Chris Greer gets fired. Now they're selling. Jalen Phillips just went to the Eagles for a third-round pick, which is a trade. Honestly, I wouldn't have been mad at if we had made it because we've got 3 third-round picks. But if we can go get a guy like Calais Campbell, who already has 5 sacks on the year, which is, I don't think it's more than the Jaguars combined, but it's more than all of the Jaguars. I know it's definitely more than Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen combined. If we can go get a guy like Calais Campbell, that would transform. That would really help out our defense because he can play inside and out. So he can be wherever we need him to be to go get some pressure on the quarterback. And that will make our secondary better. And that will make Andrew Wingard play better when there's actually getting pressure and stuff like that. And that'll make the cornerbacks play better. So, it's pretty amazing that we there were some records broken against this Raiders game. I was having doubts about Cam Little, honestly, and I think those kicks kind of got his pressure back because first of all, to break the record for the longest kick in NFL history, 68 yards, after breaking it in the preseason and hitting a 70-yarder and knowing that 68 for that's a confidence boost. Like there's no other way to put it, right? Cam Little now has the record. He has the longest field goal in NFL history. And that's got to feel good. And that he translated over, but there was no, as someone pointed out, there was no pressure on that kick because you're not really supposed to make it. It's just kind of like, let's try it. But then, with the game on the line, to tie the game, he kicked that field goal and tied it up. And it actually was very important for him to kick that 68-yard field goal that you weren't supposed to make because we needed it in order to win. It was 30-29. We needed that field goal to win. We needed every single point that we scored. So, and then essentially his extra point after that touchdown at the end was the game winner. It was the game winner because that's what allowed us to get back onto the field. That would allow us to get the win. Sorry, 30-23 at that point, and then the Raiders go for 2, and Devon Hamilton knocks it down. So Cam Little is definitely the player of the game, and he did so in record-breaking fashion. And Josh Allen has now tied for the Jaguars all-time in sacks with his performance. There was a couple of times where I was seeing Josh Hines-Allen drop back into coverage, and I'm just like, again, things like this, we need Devin Lloyd back. I don't know if they were dropping him in coverage because they needed more guys in coverage or what the plan was, but we got to get Devin Lloyd back. And I think Anthony Campanelli knows what his guys can and can't do. And I'm saying Josh Allen can't cover. But again, let's have our best guys doing what they're best at. Josh Allen is best at rushing the passer. And I know you want to switch it up with stunts. And that's why I think Devin Lloyd is great, because when you switch it up with stunts and blitzes, you can get home with 4, even if they've got 5, because if Josh Allen drops back, that tackle is confused. And if Devin Lloyd overloads the other side, he can go in and get a blitz and get a sack. So sometimes the reasoning there makes sense. But if you don't have Devin Lloyd, it doesn't work. It's just that simple. So on to how we beat the Texans. The Texans defense is phenomenal. But the solution is simple. Is CJ Stroud going to play and run the ball? That's it. Is CJ Stroud going to play? The Texans clamped down on the run, but as you can see, the Raiders were doing a pretty good job stopping the run as well at the beginning of the game, but we stuck with it, and eventually those 1-2 yard games became 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's what can happen against the Texans if CJ Stroud isn't playing and our defense is able to get off the field. Problem is, again, are we going to have any of our guys back? Devin Lloyd is not an injured reserve, but for us to have any chance of beating the Texans, we need to have him. We need to have Jordan Lewis. And we need to have Travis Hunter will still be gone for a few more games. But we need to have him and Jordan Lewis. And, Eric Murray, Antonio Johnson will continue to play. I wish we could see some of Caleb Ransaw because, man, Antonio Johnson gave up so much. But we definitely got to have Devin Lloyd and Jordan Lewis. Now, as far as the playoff picture goes, just found out that Joe Alt is out for the season. So if we end up losing this game to the Texans, I won't be overly upset because I think to punch our ticket into the playoffs, I think we just need to beat the Chargers. The Texans losing to the Broncos, I think that still ended their season. Even if they beat us, the best record they could have, because I think right now they're, I don't know exactly what their record is right now. I think they only have 4 wins or 3 wins. Yeah, so if they beat us, they would be 4-6, and we would be 5-4. So they would still be behind us, and then we have to play the Chargers. And the Texans still have some tough games left on their schedule. They still have to play the Chiefs. So, and the Colts schedule gets significantly stiffer the rest of the season. They still got the 49ers, Chiefs on tap. They've got Seattle on tap. So the Colts losing to the Steelers was great for us. It still puts the division within reach, even if we do lose to the Texans. Because if we do lose I think the Chargers, again, you want to win every game, but the Chargers game is more important than the Texans. And so I'm glad that the Chargers game is 1 week further out because that gives more time for our guys to be healthy. If Brenton Strange is back in that Chargers game, it's at home. If Brenton Strange is back, if, Eric Murray won't be back, but if Jordan Lewis is back and healthy, Devin Lloyd is feeling like himself, Trayvon Watchcraft more removed from that injury, that's the game. And again, when Joe Alt is out, you can get pressure on the Chargers quarterback. You can get pressure. Now, the Chargers might make a move for a guy. They still got time. But you can get pressure, and that's what we're going to need to do in order to beat Justin Herbert. So let me know your thoughts. What would be the keys in order to beat the Texans next week? What moves do you want to see James Gladstone make from the trade market? I wouldn't be mad if we picked up a safety, someone who could kind of play nickel and play, or could maybe play outside corner or nickel, either one, because I think Jordan Lewis is best at nickel, but I don't know. We have Greg Newsome as well, but I think having Jordan Lewis and Greg Newsome on the outside might be better than having Monteric Brown in there. So if we can pick up a safety as well, that would be great. But asking James Gladstone to do 3 moves in 1 day, that's kind of a lot. So the goal is David Njoku and Calais Campbell, and I think the Jaguars will be looking the same way. So let me know your thoughts about this Raiders win. Let me know about our win over the Raiders. Let me know your thoughts about what it would take for us to beat the Texans. And don't ever forget, it was always the Jags. Thank you so much for watching Always the Jags. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. Check out some of these other videos that I'm sure you'll be interested in as we chase Duval greatness. Thank you for joining us again, and until next time.